Flint Rasmussen on the far, I guess you would say, right. Then we also have Dollie Beutler Riddle and Vickie Beutler Shireman right there, both of the ladies. We got Vickie, Dollie in that order. We're going to correct it out. Jack voice for Walt LaRue, Mack Altizer, and Leon Coffey. Also, there's Reg. All right, Reg Camarillo. We got one more microphone needed. We got enough? All right. Reg, I hate to say this, you're going to have to fight with Flint, and good luck getting a microphone from a clown. All right. Now, the best thing about this morning is quite frankly, everybody's had a journey that's ended up on this spot. A lot of people know a lot of the stories, but a lot of people don't. And when you look at the history and the years and how rodeo has really been forged by what all of you have done, it's always fun to get some background stories. And you know, you look at all the different aspects of rodeo that are on this panel that are being inducted tonight. You could just be here for hours telling re-ride stories. We've only got an hour, so I'm going to start firing away, and we just kind of go down the table. And you know, you thought you were being smart coming this side, Leon, so guess what? Let's get this rodeo started. We'll start with you. The first question is, how you started as a bull rider. What made you go from the bull riding to the barrel?
Well, when you're riding bulls, they only pay about 7 or 8 guys. And I got in a bad habit of eating, and I wasn't being able to feed myself, so I stopped.
When you first stepped to the other side and you found yourself getting a good check in this side, who were your idols? Who'd you craft your skills after?
Wow. Wick Peth, Quail Dobbs, Miles, Rick. There's a lot of guys that were influential in what I did and how I did it. But my idols, Quail Dobbs is the crown prince of clowns to me. And I have his old car, and that's something that not everybody knows, but I got it, and I'm going to put it in the hall in Quail's name, really soon, like maybe next year.
I love it. All right, Mack Altizer. I showed up from Australia in 1980. You were the president of the NIRA at the time. You were down at Sol Ross, and all of a sudden, where the good God did Bad Company Rodeo come from, and how did it happen? Because, oh my God, did you change rodeo?
Well, I'll tell you how it got started. You won't believe this, but we went to Howard College, and we were enrolling. And one of my friends came out of the school and said, just entered us in intramurals. But I had trouble. I had to name the team. I said, what'd you name it? He said, Bad Company. And the guy was Byron Walker, of all people.
All right, so it starts with Byron, the naming. When you look at the traditions of rodeo, and rodeo is full of traditions, and the great announcers that were before and the production, where did the idea to say, hey, let's put rock and roll into something that's never seen rock and roll except in cars? Let's bring rock and roll to the production. Let's change it up. Whose idea was it, and how did it evolve?
Well, it was really a group effort, but my idea was that the rodeo business wasn't paying any money. So in order to get it paying better, we had to sell more tickets and help our committees make money. And so, therefore, we set that strategy up, and it worked because people at the coffee shop were talking about going to the rodeo because of the music. I mean, and you had to do something different to bring those ticket sales up. And we had the right group. I mean, I was lucky to have some greats come along and help out, but it was very well accepted, especially in the college level. But those college rodeos were getting more attendance than the pro rodeos in the same cities. So we knew it was going to work. There's a lady sitting around here that did the first major story in the Pro Rodeo Sports News. It was about a 3-page spread. There's a gentleman right over there, Chuck Kinney, rode the camel. We stole out of the animal exhibit over in the show barn, and he ran the barrels on the camel. But we had a breakdown around barrel 2. He vapor locked and laid down, and everybody thought that was part of the act, but we were just wondering how in the hell we were going to get him out of there so we could have the bull riding.
As they say, if you don't know the script, it's all part of the script.
Expected and unexpected, that was always it.
I'll come back to you. We'll move down there. We'll give a camel a chance to get his breath. Jack Verbois, Walt LaRue, great cowboy, competed in all kinds of events, but also a great stunt man. Talk about Walt, and he's kind of as his cowboy days and really when he transitioned into the Hollywood days as well.
Walt was
Hold it close, it won't bite.
Walt was he cowboyed mostly in the 40s and 50s, and while he was rodeoing, he did the cartoons for the Buckboard magazine, which in those days was the RCA Rodeo News. And I looked at it. He has a book full of them that I looked at, and some of them would still be relevant today with the Cowboys. This man has changed rodeo a lot, and the reason it's growing and successful. A good example is the marketing that's happening today. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana originally, and there's a little old company there called Community that made coffee. Well, you look on Cowboy Channel now and you see a Community coffee banner on every fence and a patch on every cowboy. I've been drinking that stuff 82 and a half years. And it's part of marketing and how much rodeo has changed, and he helped it all happen.
I love it. All right, legacy. When your name is Beutler, we've got Dollie, Vickie. Start with you, Dollie. When you grow up in the Beutler family and rodeo is part of what you are exposed to, talk about growing up in the family, being part of rodeo and its legacy.
Well, I hope I don't get carried away and talk too long, but when we grew up, of course, we were right there close to our granddad's place, and Jake and Lynn, which was our great uncle. Ellery was our granddad. And when we grew up, this might surprise some people, but Vickie and I, we didn't learn to ride horses and stuff right there at the Beutlers. Our mother was from a ranching family in Canadian Texas, and all 4 of her brothers rodeoed. And my granddad, he was a farmer, but he had a lot of mares and studs and all, and raised horses. So anyway, that's where I learned to ride a horse, was in Canadian. And of course, Grandpa, you was out there on the Canadian River. We had lots of fun. And anyway, we were about 10 or 11 years old, I guess. And Daddy, Jiggs, him and Ellery, they didn't have any hired help. They had a feed man and a farmer, but they didn't have anybody that worked for them full time. So it was Vickie, myself, and Benny. They found out Vickie and I could ride, so away the pastures we went. And I would have to say that's some of the funnest times of my life. Wasn't always good, but it was fun. So Ellery would be telling you go one way, Jiggs would say, God dang it, you know, you can imagine. But anyway, that lasted through our high school years. And I can tell you when I was a kid back in those days, of course, we were in the rodeo office too with our mother. I never set out to be sitting here where I am today. I cried when I opened my letter, and I'm just overwhelmed that we are part of the legacy, but it's just been part of our life too, just every day. So.
Well said. All right. Vickie, the legacy. We talked about the family. Benny's been inducted. Every one of the Beutlers been inducted. Dollie talked about how special it is. What does it mean when you stop and you look back? Because this is, in rodeo, you can win a lot. You can achieve a lot. You can be named the Timer of the Year. You can go to the National Finals Rodeo. But when you get inducted into a hall, it is because of your body of work has been judged by your peers that you deserve to be enshrined. What does that mean when you look at all the other Beutlers that are in this hall to you?
Well, I guess, Dave, I never really thought about that. It's not like we had a dream, you know, this is what we want to accomplish, because I never ever thought about it, because I just kind of thought about, like, that happened to other people. So when I got a call, I remember when I was in Las Vegas last year, I was going to work that morning out to the building, and I got a call, and it was from a guy, and he was a bronc rider, and he told me that he was going to nominate us. And I was just kind of speechless. And anyway, so Jenny and Melissa, they helped do the paperwork and stuff. And, you know, I was just kind of amazed that we were nominated. And when Rob called us and told us that we were going to be inducted and stuff, I was just amazed. And that's just something that I'd never ever thought about. So when you stop and think about it, you never really think about anybody ever notices who the secretary and timers are at a rodeo. So you're just kind of behind the scenes, and just to be up here amongst everybody, and as you walk these halls and see all the other inductees from past years, it's just kind of overwhelming. So, like I said, I never ever thought this was something that would ever happen, so I just feel very honored that people have recognized us and that we made it here.
Okay, so every secretary, timer, you know, in the good old days when you showed up and you paid your fees and you wrote a check, there's got to be one of the great stories that some contestant told you when they paid their entry fees, knowing that that check probably had wings on it and it would bounce in 16 directions, but they just had a good one and you just had to go ahead and take that check. What's the best story you remember as a secretary?
Include Leon in it.
I can tell you one.
You always
Real
had
quick.
these guys that you would hear about that, oh yeah, they got a lot of money. They got a big ranch. They're down so-and-so, you know, they got all this money. Well, that'd be the first guy you got a hot check on, you know, so you're just like, holy cow. You know, and back then we were the bankers, because the office, like if you got a hot check on someone, I mean, it took a month to get it. So you were helping these guys go down the road a lot. And you got a lot of hot checks.
All right, Dollie, you said hey, you had a story. Let's hear it.
I do. I heard of a guy that was working in the calf pen at Woodward, Oklahoma, and he was on the labor list, and his name was Rusty Riddle. First time I ever heard of him, I was actually going with some other bull rider, and he had caught a ride with Rusty Riddle and a couple more guys, and they were in the calf pen at Woodward. That was in 1972. And anyway, a couple months later, I got to know Rusty, and we started dating at Burwell, Nebraska. And my dad, he told my mother, he said, "Do you know who Dollie's dating?" Well, no. Well, it's Rusty Riddle. Oh my gosh. So this was a couple of years Rusty and I dated. I don't think the guy ever paid me his entry fees. So that's my story, and Rusty will even attest to it.
Oh, you were paying him, though.
All right. Let the stories begin. All right, let's go north. Flint.
Youngest one up here, by the way.
Oh, he took his shoes off to add that one up. Okay. High school teacher to where you are today. What happened? How did it happen?
Oh, it happened long before that.
Okay. Tell us the story, because
I'm probably a little different in, I never said, wow, it'd be cool to be a rodeo clown. I mean, that was, my parents are here. My dad was a rodeo announcer, but just around Montana. So that was our summer. We were either in the camper on the old red pickup, and then we upgraded to a mini Winnie motorhome. But we went around all the rodeos in Montana, and I didn't really, they can attest, I wasn't really a cowboy. I was an athlete, and we had music was a big part of our lives. I was in the school play. I just did everything, and it was summer of 1987, and my brother Will had just started his great rodeo announcing career. My dad and me, we were sitting at the table. I don't know what it was. I'd been to a rodeo with one of them, and I said, these rodeo clowns are not funny anymore. Like, I remember saying, is there like a handbook of old rodeo clown jokes you got to tell? Sorry, Leon, you own the book. And I mean, in a sense, I was saying, man, when I was 5, I remember the hat cleaning act, and somebody's still doing the hat cleaning act, but they said, oh, wait till you see my new act. And so they kind of dared me. They said, you've always been entertaining. I remember my dad saying, you've always been entertaining, and I wasn't a bad kid. I just, was kind of entertaining.
Are you trying to say that bad and entertaining are sort of...
Yeah. So they dared me to do it. They dared me. And my brother said, I'm going to this little tiny rodeo in Superior, Montana in 2 weeks, and I'm going to call them up. And they knew our family's name, and I did it. Wrestled up some makeup and some stuff. And then the next summer, Don Jacobs in Montana said, come do all my rodeos. Okay. It was my summer job in college. I never had goals to go any bigger. And in turn, it caused me to be patient. We see it now, guys come in and do a year of clowning some rodeos. They said, I'm ready. I want to do the PBR, and I want to do the NFR. And I did 5 or 6 years just in Montana. And in the meantime, I was getting pretty good at it and was developing my own style. And so, yeah, I had a teaching job after college, and I taught for 2 years, and I was single and didn't own anything, and I said, why not? I was getting phone calls, so I said, why not? So I gave it a go, and that was in 1993, so it worked out. It worked out okay, but yeah, if you were to ask me who my rodeo clown idols were, we didn't travel around to big PRCA rodeos. I'd never been to Cheyenne. My idols were entertainers like Garth Brooks and comedians like Howie Mandel. I mean, I could list who I watched. And so that's why I went about things different. I always went about it a different way. I've said it in a couple of interviews. I remember joking, somebody said, man, you could be the best rodeo clown. I said, that's like being the best looking waitress at Denny's. Like, why not? Sorry, I apologize. But it was more, I had a bigger thought. I know, sorry. I had a bigger thought with it. And frankly, that's why, I did the NFR and I had a really successful rodeo career. And a lot of people think, well, he went to the PBR because they paid him all this money. No, it was about what I was making. I just was, I hate to say I was bored, but there were bigger things, and I could go to Madison Square Garden. I could go to Los Angeles and pull fans in that wouldn't normally be bull riding or rodeo fans. And, Mack was doing that. Leon did that too. And that was what it was about to me. I wanted to make a difference bigger. But don't get me wrong, I didn't do it for free. It's so, yeah, I do. I think my story's probably, the path is a little different. I worked in 1995. No, Shelby was a baby. 99. It was the Pasco, Washington. They had an end of the year rodeo in Pasco, Washington, and Shelby was a baby, and she's here now. And I worked with Leon. That was the first time we did the NFR.
That was the first one.
Can I, really quick, speaking of stories, because I won't have time in the 2 minutes they give us tonight. I was in, my wife and I at the time were at this, I don't remember what it was. It was a pretty fancy social cocktail hour, and this older, really classy couple from Texas came up. The reason I know they were from Texas is because they, of course, told us they were from Texas. They said, we're from Texas. What do y'all do? What do y'all do for a living? I said, I'm actually a professional rodeo clown. I'd done the NFR once. Oh, where y'all from? I said, Montana. Well, we're from Texas. We have big rodeos in Texas. You're a rodeo clown? I said, yeah. Man, we have really good rodeo clowns in Texas. Have you ever heard of Leon Coffey? And I said, yeah, he was my alternate at the NFR.
And let me tell you, it ain't far from the penthouse to the outhouse.
All right. Reg, I just don't know how you're going to pick up your rope and cover this one. The name Camarillo, legendary team roping business. A lot could be said, of course, Gerald, Leo, your cousins, what they did, but really it took somebody to give them the opportunity to do what they did, and kind of you were the guy. Yeah. I'm going to throw a curveball at you because I talked to Bob Feist, and Bob Feist said that he thought that after you'd been in Vietnam and you came back, you had the maturity and the wisdom to really get everything going. Talk about your experiences from being in the Army, how it helped you be a better cowboy.
Boy, that is a curveball. I don't know how to answer that. Like I told Kendra in an interview, I was drafted into the Army, went to Vietnam, and when I came out, Leo drafted me to go with him to the team roping wars. But I don't know. It just put coming back from Vietnam, it just kind of put more things in perspective, and I did not chase championships like Leo and Gerald did, which more credit to them. But I don't know. I just went along.
Would the discipline? Back then, you guys were kind of the pioneers of really turning heads and getting them out. Was the discipline anything to do with getting out of the barrier? Laying that barrier back, how you got out, how you turned that steer. All of those things. Did the discipline carry over?
Yeah, I think it did in a way. Just being on time for the slack, having my bed made before I got there. But yeah, I think it played some part in my discipline, my whole life actually. And yeah, a lot of things were affected by it.
Okay, let's get into the ropes. Back then when you roped, it's not like the ropes today. It was a different rope. What kind of ropes did you use, and were you known like all the others? You had a little, you took the air filter out of your pickup truck, threw the rope in the can to get it to the right feel. Talk about your ropes that you used.
Yeah, the feel of the rope was always important to me. But if you look at today's ropes and you look at the ropes we used, ours were more like cables in comparison. And there was very few rope companies in those days that you could go find, you know, King Brothers and Sheridan, and we had one out in California. But big difference in the ropes today. I can't even swing one hardly. Looks like it hurt your hand. It's just a dally. But anyway, lots of difference.
All right, we'll come back. Sue Rosoff, Tad Lucas Award winner. There's so many people that covered so many different things in rodeo, and there's been so many great images of rodeo. You showed up. How did you end up in rodeo? Because like a lot of people, you had a unique background that you ended up in. Where did this all start, and what was your first rodeo?
My first actual rodeo was, I think I was about 8. My dad loaded all of us up on the train and we went to Flagstaff for 4th of July. And that was the first time I ever saw a rodeo. But you know, then I grew up in Pasadena, California, and then Capistrano Beach, and then I went to Berkeley. And
all big rodeo schools.
All big rodeo places, yeah. Well, at Capistrano, we have San Juan.
Yep.
So I got into photography in high school, started going into the darkroom. Then when I went to Berkeley, I got a degree in history of art because I wanted to be able to teach visually, because I really believe people learn well visually. So then I missed photography, so I started taking classes again. And I ended up, because I really thought that I wanted to see if I could do a social documentary type photography where I would go into a culture and see if that I knew nothing about, and see if I could become a fly on the wall. I didn't know if it was possible, but I talked my dad into sending me back to school for a master's because I figured I would do it for my thesis project, and if it worked, it worked, but if not, I'd still have the master's. So I was looking for a group, a culture to photograph, and one of the people getting his master's with me was from Holland, and he got off the plane and was so disappointed that it wasn't Monument Valley right there, because he grew up watching John Ford movies. And I said, Rudy, don't worry, I'll take you to see Cowboys at the end of October, because that's when Cow Palace was. Cow Palace was like my hometown rodeo. And I took some pictures at the Cow Palace, and I thought, this is interesting. And I was also a workshop assistant for Ansel Adams. I don't know if you all know who he is, but I showed all of us assistants, workshop assistants, had to show our work. And Ansel and Virginia Adams really liked the rodeo stuff. And they invited me over for lunch after the workshop and said, what are you going to do with that stuff? I said, well, I'm thinking about doing it for my master's thesis. So Ansel said, Virginia, go get your pictures you took in Yosemite for the rodeo days in the 20s and 30s. So Virginia pulls out all these really cool pictures of woolly, guys in woolly chaps in the 20s and 30s. And by the end of lunch, it's like, what are you going to do? If Ansel and Virginia Adams say, we really think you should go with rodeo, okay. So that's how it started.
Great way just to fall into the family. I'm going to go down and come back and give you one last time, because we run out of time too quickly in here. Leon, first, do you have any rebuttals for Flint before I get to him?
I'll meet you out back. That's where we used to settle stuff,
You talk about acts. who were some of the guys you had the most fun with? I mean, you worked such a career. You had so many great guys, and I was blessed to rodeo around the same time. I think actually 50 decades we're lucky enough to rodeo with you. You had such a long career, but you guys had so much fun. I mean, you never worked. You were having fun, and it got out of control. But who were the fun guys you had the most fun with?
Okay. I've rodeoed for so long, I cannot say that there was somebody I had more fun with, because in the rodeo world back then there was a family that went everywhere and you saw everybody all the time. The whole rodeo industry is who I had the most fun with. I took no prisoners. I mean, I would gun you down. There was nothing that was sacred to me in the regard of being funny. Easy now. I know some of them people are still in here. I might be dead. I was going to write a book one time, and I told Walt Garrison, I said, Walt, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to put you in it. He said, I'll kill you. So I've had more fun with everybody. There's no one person that I had more fun with, but, well, there is one person I had more fun with than anybody, and that's me. My biggest deal was to try to entertain Leon. And if I could entertain me being a clown, everybody else should have been in stitches. You know, I felt like I have to be funny. I have to make me laugh. I'm dyslexic, and in school, everybody thought that I was slow. They didn't know what dyslexia was until I got in the Army, and they tested me. They didn't know what it was. But I had to cover up a lot of inability to read and read words or read a book with comedy, and I never let it stop. I was never one of the greatest bullfighters, but you couldn't hold a candle to me with putting bullfighting and comedy together, and I prided myself on that. Rob Smets, Miles Hare, all these guys were a lot better bullfighters. Matter of fact, there's a guy sitting right over there, Mr. Chuck Sylvester, told me one time I got to go to Denver. He says, look, man, I'm going to hire you for Denver. You're not the best bullfighter, but you do put butts in seats, you know. I said, thank you, sir, I appreciate it. The next year, I took my mule up. My mule got a contract, and I didn't. I'm still mad about that. I'm still mad about that, Chuck. Okay.
You know, putting butts in seats, Mack, of course, we've already touched on rock and roll on the rodeo. When you sit back and you watch a rodeo today, every rodeo today, it doesn't matter, and even the PBR, the music, the transition, and people can always point back to, well, that's the guy that did it first. What's the gratification for Mack Altizer for all of a sudden seeing how you transform rodeo to where it's sort of morphed? And I use rodeo bull riding into the entertainment business that you first saw it being. What does that mean for you?
Well, the best thing is our sponsorship is growing so much now. That's helping our record payouts. Look at the NFR this year. It's going to be records in the go-rounds and the average. But the sponsorship, there's people that are getting involved now that never were around a rodeo. But the music's helped bring them to the table. And that's one of the biggest things right there, because it's all about getting more income for the committees and the association, and then the rodeos will pay better. And the sponsorships for the individual cowboys and cowgirls are going to get bigger. So bottom line is the income. I mean, everybody at the bank is happy that way.
Jack, is there any stories you'd like to talk about Walt and your relationship and knowing him that perhaps none of us know about?
Yeah, even though Walt came from a rodeo background and then started doing stunts, he rubbed shoulders with Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and some big name people. He just still stayed cowboy. And then when his art became pretty famous, they call him a noted artist. I didn't know what that meant, but somebody explained it to me, and so now I know it. But he said that was a sideline. But he and I have talked about rodeo and how it changed so much from his day through mine. I quit in '65. Like, for instance, when I made Houston in '65, we put all our rigging bags in the clown room. There was more liquor in there than any distributor in the Houston area. Well, that hadn't gone away completely because I saw a couple of cowboy hats in the bar last night. But there's some really good things that have happened, and some probably not so good. But I know money in them cowboys' pockets makes a difference. Because the year I quit, the bull riding champion won $21,000, and Chuck's dad and them paid me pretty good to fight bulls, but I can't even touch what's happening now. Rasmussen, you must be a millionaire by now.
He's throwing rocks at you for making too much money. Dollie, evolution of rodeo. The family, the business. You talk about Mack changing how it is. From your eyes, talk about the good things that have evolved and how you've seen it all change. I mean, Leon talked about family. Rodeo is a family. Is it still a family? Because, I mean, I think as you see it, I know personally when I rodeoed, it took everybody to get down the road. I knew everybody at the timed event end and every other end, and you were catching rides left and right. As you see the evolution of the sport, is that family core still there?
Yes and no. And when I say yes, I can go down the aisle of chairs here, other than for Sue and this gentleman here. I remember the first time I saw Leon Coffey. I was trick riding for Tommy Steiner at Dallas, Texas at the state fair. Jolene and Bobby said, "You got to see this guy fighting bulls." That's what we all did, was run back to the arena when we got through and got our horses and stuff tended to, and they were right on. So I'm proud to say I've known Leon. That was probably in '74. And then Mack Altizer, his daddy used to come in the rodeo office when Vickie and I were kids. Of course, him and our mother, Jim Bob and our mother was, you know, you knew all the cowboys then, whether they were riding event guys or timed event guys, the bell racers. We didn't have team roping back then as a standard event. So, you know, I didn't know Mack as much as I did his dad. But then when Mack got involved and got in college rodeo, he was like Rusty. His reputation preceded him because my mother was the secretary.
Well, I guess all in the family.
Anyway, and then of course Vickie and I, we've grew up in the rodeo office. I remember when I saw Flint the first time. Benny had just got the rodeo at Tucson from Mike Servey, and that was early 90s, 92, 93. So I feel like, you know, of course, kept up with him through our son-in-law, being Corey Navarre. And anyway, I've enjoyed Flint all these years. And then Reg, of course, I remember seeing him at the NFR when Rusty was there here in Oklahoma City. And we just didn't know much about the team ropings, but we knew the 3 Camarillos, and we knew who was the best looking one.
Woo!
He probably don't remember me and Vickie, but we remember him.
I do believe that man might be blushing.
So, but as for today, it's good today. We are fortunate enough to get to go to rodeos where the committee people, just the townspeople, we were kids. We're all the same age now, but in our 70s, late 60s. We knew their parents, and it's just a community affair. And for the contestants, you get to know some of them. I think more so now than we did here 10 or 12 years ago, because they all play online, and you don't get to know the contestants unless you're involved in that aspect of being on a horse and riding in the arena. But as far as for the personnel and stuff, we're all still a big family.
Vickie, following up on that, a lot of people may not realize just what all is involved and what you guys do behind the scenes. Walk us through just like a normal performance. I mean, because, everyone says, oh, the rodeo secretary, you're the timer, you're this. You're juggling 16, 17 things going on at the same time. I mean, you're providing information to the announcers. It's nonstop back there. Just expand a little bit on kind of what your roles were at a rodeo, because it encompassed a lot.
Well, you might say that the secretary is one that works with everybody at the rodeo, from the committee to the stock contractors to the cowboys. I mean, you play a role in all of it, because you've got to do day sheets and work with the committee for the payoff, the prize money, then with the stock contractors, all the draw and all the numbers, and then the cowboys. I mean, you're the one that takes their money if they do pay. You record all the times. And that kind of goes back to what Dollie was saying, kind of like cowboys. You knew cowboys a lot better, 20 years ago, but now it's all technology. And on our computer, there's a deal on our computer that it says you pay cash, pay by check, or it says pay in the office. So when they come in, you say, are you going to pay in the office? And they're like, no, ma'am, I'm paying online. They don't even know there is a PRCA office. So it's kind of, a lot of that has changed. But I would have to say the secretary works in every aspect of the rodeo, because you are working with everyone.
Okay. Flint, as an entertainer, what happens in your mind when perhaps something that you thought was going to go a certain way doesn't go a certain way, and you have to regroup and go, because you're the guy carrying the show? I've watched you. When they go to commercial break, it's all on you. If something goes south, I know you're the only one that has the script, but there's got to be
there's no script.
There's got to be something. Talk about perhaps what they would say, Flint's biggest wreck at the wrong time.
Well, for one, young guys come to me and say, where do you get all your material? Like, how do you stay fresh material? I said, pay attention. Pay attention. It's going to present itself. Pay attention to what's going on in the community. I see the Pendleton Roundup guys here. I knew that place inside and out. I wrote a song about that place, performed it in the arena. So there's an icebreaker there. So pay attention. But that was my strongest thing, and being with PBR, hey, we got a 4-minute commercial coming up. I will tell you a story on YouTube. Probably the most viewed clip of mine is the Australian bull snake, where I'm Steve Irwin. Crikey, have a look at him.
Yeah.
And I had done that before at rodeos, but funny thing behind that, 2 bulls before that, they said, we have a 4.5-minute commercial. It was Jerome Robinson, I think, told me. We have 4.5-minute commercial coming up and nothing in the commercial, which means Jerome used to do this to me. I don't know if you knew Jerome Robinson, the greatest ever. He'd stand there, and then when it was my time, he'd do this. And 2 bulls before, they said, we have a 4.5-minute commercial. Okay. So I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do? What would work good? The last bull rider before that commercial was an Australian. The bull came out, and his bull rope fell in front of the shark cage. And I did this, and I looked at the announcer. I said, don't transition to a commercial. And I looked at Shorty Gorham, who was fighting bulls, and he said, stay back. And I went into that. So it just felt My dad used to call that shithouse luck. Yeah, you got to pay attention. This is how my mind worked for 2.5 hours. Physically, I was tired, but I was more tired up here. That's why I probably can't do this job as long. I was tired, you know. I will say, looking over here, we talk about people that we shared locker rooms with. Never forget, it was not all roses and rainbows, and we love everybody, and hey, we're a group of rodeo clowns. Remember I did PBRs and rodeo at the same time. You know, I did it all. And I remember in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in Old Tingley Coliseum, and I was in the locker room with Rob Smets, Jimmy Anderson, and Roach Hedeman, and none of them liked me. And I sat in the corner and I said, this is the most miserable career. It was awful. Pretty soon, Jimmy Anderson came to me after a performance. He said, hey, I got to tell you something. I still use this saying. My girls was, he said, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass because you got nothing I want. But he said, best job I've ever seen. And he walked away. Now, Smets and I, we're as close as brothers, you know. But it wasn't, yeah, my style didn't catch on. I mean, hey, tell them about the first time you.
Yeah. Wow. let me tell you something about that, though. In this rodeo business, when we first got started, it was a game of merit. You had to earn the right to be where you were. And it wasn't well, that's a new kid. No, you had to earn the right to be in that dressing room, in that arena, in somebody's thoughts. You had to earn the right. Mm-hmm. Now, if that meant being funny or being tough, like Rob was, I had Jim Shoulders told me one time at the National Finals Rodeo, he said, boy, I'd love to hire that guy for the whole rodeo, but I don't think he's going to be around for the half the year. You know? I just don't think he's going to live that long, you know, but here he is, still here. But you had to prove yourself every time you walked in that pen. Every single time. It didn't matter what you did or how you did it. You had to earn the right to be in that herd.
That's right. I remember that first time in Pasco, Washington. Leon was there standing over by the fence, and I whooped out the old Michael Jackson act. And I finished, and I looked over, and Leon Coffey was like this. He saved me and said, white boys ain't supposed to dance like that. That's the truth.
White man can't jump, but he can dance. Dance.
Reg, speaking of dancing, God, I hate to have to transition to you. You know, it's been priceless to sit here. You see, you got two girls that had a crush on you. You've got to blush. You do everything. I mean, they already talked about you being the one that had to keep the family going because you were the nice guy. The cousins were little characters. 3 NFR average championships. I mean, you were the man. I mean, Bob Feist said this. He said, back in the days of roping, he said the guy that was on the head end had to be mounted. He had to know how to ride a horse, and he had to be able to throw that loop because you could rope anything on the back end as a dink. Talk about, people don't realize horsemanship plays such a big part of what you did.
I don't know what to tell you about that, but it does play a big part of it. And to win, especially nowadays, you've never seen so many great-looking horses and good horses. But when you're competing, you got to count on your horse, and you got to take care of them. And sucker's got to stand in the box like a rock, and when you nod your head, go. And under fire, hustle, get out of their face, all that stuff. So, a big part of it.
Which one of these sisters did you date? I want to know which one.
Oh, man. My beautiful wife is sitting right over here.
All right. When you gather yourself, what was your best rodeo moment?
I think there was one year when we were still tying the steers down. 10th round, we were not in the lead, and the team that went out and made a run, and then Leo and I drew this really bad steer that had already took 3 or 4 teams out of the roping, and we just went for it, and big old Bramer steer, and he cut behind me, and we knew he was coming that way, and Leo had him roped and on the ground, and I had him tied, and we went to the lead, and it was a pretty special moment. Got a standing ovation, I guess. That's the reason I remember it.
Pretty good to get a standing ovation in the team roping back then.
That's what I said.
All right, Sue, you talked about getting into the rodeo family, the acceptance in the family. Give us some of the most iconic shots that are so special to you from the thousands of photos that you've taken in rodeo.
The most popular in rodeo is the one of the guy getting a ticket in the rearview mirror.
Mike Collier, Pecos, Texas.
We were on our way to Pecos, and he had a lead foot. And I mean, we were hours. I mean, even with the ticket, we still had to wait at a Holiday Inn drinking sweet tea, which I'd never had before. And, yeah. So I'm sitting there in the front passenger seat, and Hooter Brown's behind me, and I'm looking at the side view mirror, watching this happen, thinking, I really need to photograph this. Because I was photographing moments. I didn't really photograph action. I was trying to document the other 95% of rodeo beyond the arena. So I'm thinking, if I get out, that Texas Ranger's going to haul me off to jail, and those guys will go to the rodeo and just tell everybody about it, and who knows if I'll ever see my stuff again. So I was focusing on the mirror, and I hear Hooter go, if you're going to take the goddamn picture, roll down the goddamn window. Good idea. There's another one of the iconic pictures that people really love. It's Mark Cotter, Doug Vold, and Darrell Barron sitting after the Cheyenne drinking a beer, and they are laughing so hard. And it was funny. I see them, and I'm thinking, okay, I have to shoot that. So I squat down, and I'm focusing on them, and they stop. And they all look at me until they realize I'm not going anywhere. And then they go back to the joke, and I got that shot. Sometimes you just have to know to wait. So another one I call stretch. It's Rob McDonald stretching behind the chutes at Pendleton. This is in '84. When I got up to Pendleton, they didn't want to give me access to anywhere besides from the seats. They gave the boy photographers passes.
Yep.
And then I just kept going back to the office every day. And I finally wore them down. And they said, okay, you can be behind the chutes for 20 minutes. I mean, behind the chutes there is big. There's a lot of space. And not a whole lot of people. I mean, I'd been behind the chutes plenty of times. And anyway, I get back there, and I kind of duck and stuff, and I ended up being there for more like a half hour. And I saw Rob stretching, and it was just beautiful. It was like any athlete stretching, and I got it. And so, ha, 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 on Pendleton.
Whole new meaning, a letter buck. We might have stretched it a little bit long on time, but when you're having fun, who cares? Time stands still. Real quickly, everybody, just give me your best moment.
Right now.
Right now. There you go. Live in the moment. Mack?
That'd be hard to beat. That's also for me. And I got a good story.
All right.
It's on this guy.
All right, tell it.
Everybody's got one on me, man. Come on.
Not this good. I'm doing the Strawberry Festival in Poteet, Texas. And it's an open rodeo, and I said, well, if I go put on the big time rodeo and break all the records with the fair and the rodeo and the carnival, I can get it to be PRCA. So I thought the best ticket seller I can get is Leon. Sunday, 2 o'clock performance. We've already had a Friday and a Saturday. And the boys are back in town playing, and I'm in the tack trailer getting my chaps because this is the last song before showtime. He comes around there, and I'm trying to get my chaps on, and he starts, and he's got this scared look on his face, you know. And I said, what's the matter? He said, I got a big problem. I said, what's the matter? He says, they stole my clown barrel. They sure did. And it was rolled up beside the gate like he exits arena, and it was gone, no shit. And I look, and I'm in the tack trailer, well, I have one. I said, let's get this and get ready. Well, you know, we're talking a couple minutes. And about then, he went into real shock. No, and the barrel that was missing, it has Houston Rodeo art all over it. And it's bye-bye. That was no kidding. But what had happened after the rodeo and the dance and the fair and everything and the carnival, everybody walked right by going to the contestant parking lot and stuff. So we, I guess besides him being mad, the person that got the maddest was the sheriff. And he was going to make sure that they found the barrel, and Leon made sure the guys went to jail. And the next morning, no kidding, on a Monday, Facebook had pictures of all these kids at Kingsville at the college with that barrel up on the apartments having a party. And by the time we saw the picture, the sheriff already had a lot of law headed that way to get that barrel. You know, and I think
it's an aluminum barrel. They thought it was full of beer.
But I think in 25, he's the inductee for the Houston Stock Show and Rodeo. You're the man, huh? But that shows you what happens in rodeo. People don't even get to see all the time. But it was a scared look on his face, I promise.
That's only because you had a few bulls that would hook me, and I had run out of speed, and that was the only thing I had to hide in, you know.
All right, let's slide on down. Jack, what you got?
I told this story to Walt, and he loved it. Kenny Brothers was having 2 rodeos one weekend, and so H.R. Williams and I clowned Austin, and Rick Young went over to clown the other one. Well, right before the rodeo, Mike Greer comes up to me and he says, Jack, come get me. Don't forget, come get me. I'm going to get in trouble. Well, old bull started to buck him off, and I shot the gat and jumped, and I mistimed it just a hair. Well, he's one of them old black muley bulls of Kenny Brothers, and I landed right on his head. And he's carrying me, and I'm just balanced. And it flashes through your mind about your life. And it flashed through my mind, I ain't got to worry. HR is going to pull him off of me. Well, I finally rolled off, and the old bull kept going. Nobody was hurt. And I looked back at the chutes. H.R. Williams couldn't get off the ground laughing so hard. So he wasn't going to save my life. You got to get in line to make a fool of yourself sometimes, because there's a bunch of us out there.
Dollie, we know about Rusty not paying his dues. Best story besides that one.
Yeah.
I guess I was sitting here trying to think that when I knew you were coming down the line. I'd have to say, course, I said this in the beginning, I'm overwhelmed by us sitting up here. And Vickie and I, there's 13 months between us. She's the oldest.
Oh, there you go.
I'm not.
You're not.
I'm
You're
not.
No.
Anyway, I remember one, Daddy and Ellery had the rodeo at Big Spring, Texas. And Leonard Lancaster and C.R. Boucher was both working for our mom and dad, and I'm sure most of y'all have heard or knew of them. But we had been to the swimming pool and stuff, and Vickie and I had come in, get ready for the rodeo, and you ladies will remember this, when you used to roll your hair in curlers and you had picks and bobby pins to pin them all in. Well, for some reason, I was probably 11, 12 years old. Vickie, she was just right behind me. Well, something made us mad. I don't remember what the situation was. But
Probably Benny. It was probably Benny that made you
mad. Could have
mad.
been Benny. He was an instigator. Still is. But C.R. and Leonard had come by the room to get a work list from Mother, and they'd gone and worked stock, and me and Vickie, we still had our hair in rollers, and they come back. Daddy was in the room. Benny come in the room. And for whatever reason, me and Vickie got mad at each other, and we was pulling those curlers out of each other's hair. Well, Mother, she jigs, make them stop. Let them fight it out. Let them fight it out. So we did. And we've got along all these years, and I can't say how proud I am to be sitting here with her today.
All right, sis. Take it over.
Well, there's a couple of things that come to mind, Dave, on this. One thing that I often think about is like it was at the 50th NFR, and all three of us kids had jobs at the NFR. Benny was Sean's assistant. Dollie was working in the office, and I was the office manager. So I often think about how proud our parents would have been of that. And also, I think I agree with Leon on this. You know, we've all had rain, we've got a new president, and I'm going into the Hall of Fame with my sister.
Woo! You know, and not to steal your thunder here, Flint, as you say, you know, stay relevant in the moment. I did see something else, since you Okies are special. I realized this, that there's only one state in the whole United States that was solid red. It was Boomer Sooner, Oklahoma. How about that? So there you go. All right, best story, Flint.
What about you? Are you legal to vote?
Huh?
Your accent's about gone. Every once in a while.
I swam the big river. Don't worry about me. It's not. Hey, I'm the guy on the side. It's all about you.
There you going there, Daddy.
Yeah.
Biggest memory for me, biggest moment to this day, no matter where I go, whatever. The NFR to us was kind of unattainable. Will's right there, where we just watched. We watched. Remember the Heston telecast, and one performance was on Sunday, and you're going. You know, you're thinking, "Holy cow, this is huge." And why is Bob Eubanks doing TV? What the hell was that about? But that was our access to the NFR. So in 1998, when I got voted to do the NFR, I had never sat. I had been to it a couple times, but never sat in plaza seating. The only place I ever sat was up high. So I get voted to do the NFR, and if you've ever been in Thomas and Mack, it's this long, skinny tunnel where we walk down. You're not allowed to leave if you break the force field of your locker room, Sean Davis will fine you for something. Sean's here. That's why I said that.
250.
Going down that tunnel, there's so much energy and buzz. Joe Bumgartner, who I did every year of the NFR with, every year Joe Bumgartner did the NFR, every single performance, he puked in the garbage can at the bottom of that tunnel. Fact. Right, Rob? Leon knows. I rolled that barrel down there, and this to me was, holy crap, my parents are here, and I knew I didn't get to do anything, really. You know, you stand in the barrel, I was afraid to wave to the crowd, and I was always taught public speaking in school, don't chew gum. But I knew I wasn't going to do anything. Joe said, do you want a piece of gum? I said, yeah, hell, I'll have a piece of gum. I'm not going to talk anyway. So I'm out there, and 15 bull riders, and I'm sweating because I was so nervous, and I go change clothes, and I ride the elevator up to the concourse, meet my family, and my mom and dad are coming, and like, NFR, and we walked up, and my mom walked up and said, how was your damn gum? That's all she noticed. I've never chewed gum in the arena since, ever.
Mother knows best.
Right. You ought to see her chew gum.
Reg, best moment.
Oh, I had lots of good moments, especially at the NFR, with a few good wins. But I think one year at Salt Lake City at the Salt Palace, Gerald and I roped a steer in 4.9. Now today that's nothing. You won't even get a check most of the places. But in 4.9, we set the world's records for speed in those days. And that was pretty good because it lasted a while until Team Roping got to more rodeos. So, anyway.
Well, we could go on forever. I'm already over time, but how about a great round of applause for this year's inductees? I mean, the best thing about this is this gives you a chance to learn a little bit more tonight when the event starts. Unfortunately, they're supposedly capped at 2 minutes for their speech. Supposedly. Might be the key word, but this gives you a chance to see some insight and really, you know, it's so much fun because it's unscripted, it's off the cuff, and they get to tell their stories, and there's so many great things to talk about, and hell, there's no alcohol involved. I mean, we're not even in the locker room, but if you want to hear more of them, I promise you, after tonight, there'll be a bar scene somewhere, and I will promise you there will be some very good stories. But here's your 2024 class, and let's have another great round of applause.